Hey everyone, Lydia and Kim here from Alexa. Thanks for tuning in. We're sitting down with Nicole Kohler. She is a content strategist at Animalz. Animalz is a content marketing agency for B2B SaaS companies. And Nicole has some great experience working directly with clients on choosing impactful keywords. So we're excited to dive into that and hear about some real world examples from Nicole that can hopefully help guide you in your own content strategy. So with that, Nicole, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be working with y'all on this little presentation that I put together. Choosing impactful keywords is something that I am personally, I would say, really passionate about. It's something that I run into with a lot of the customers that I work with. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction before I jump in, I am a content strategist at Animalz. I started there last year. I originally came in what we call the CM position, which is a content manager role. And the CMs have day-to-day operations, communicating with customers, producing content, doing writing, revisions. As a content strategist, which is the role I've been doing for the last 4 months, I work with customers on a day-to-day basis to create their content calendars, do ideation, and do the overarching strategy that defines this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is who our audience is or audiences. And keyword research is a really big part of what I do, not just when we're brainstorming singular content calendars, but when we're working on individual articles. So a lot of my work is both doing research for customers, but then also coaching our CMs on here's the keyword that we chose, here's how to use that keyword. So when I talk about impactful keywords, there's a lot of ways that you can interpret that phrase, right? And I think for me, that breaks down often into choosing keywords that address audiences that are at different stages of the buying or marketing funnel. So with this presentation I put together, I wanted to go over very briefly, like what I think about when I do keyword research and I think about impactful keywords and that marketing funnel. I have 3 case studies. One from an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system used in recruiting, one with a live chat platform, and the last one is KaiOS, which is a mobile operating system. And all 3 of these are our customers. KaiOS was happy to have their name used. The other 2 are going to be anonymous. And then the final thing I'll go over is some tips for your own keyword research to make that impactful or to have that kind of represent the audiences at the different stages of the marketing funnel. So when I start doing keyword research, I ask myself some questions like this, and that helps me determine what kind of impact do I want the keywords to have when I'm choosing them, right? So who are we trying to attract with our keywords? Is it someone who has just started their journey? Are they just starting to think about, I need this, or I might need this? Are they doing research on something, or do they already have something in their cart, right? There's a very big difference to me between keywords that are searched by someone who is like, I think I might want to start drinking smoothies, and someone who has a blender in their shopping cart, right? Like, those are very, very different people, and they're very, very different stages of the funnel, and they need very different pieces of content to be attracted to your site. So that ties into the next thing. What do they need or think that they need? Is it information? Is it help making a decision? Is it entertainment? Is it ideas? Like, what specifically are they looking for? How is your content going to solve that problem? No one likes the experience of, seeing the #1 result for a keyword, clicking on it, and then that content doesn't actually deliver anything. I think we've all been there one way or another. Your content should be intimately tied to that keyword, right? So like, how is that keyword going to relate to the content that you're going to produce? And I almost always recommend starting with the keyword and developing the content from that, rather than going the other way around and trying to kind of shove keywords into existing content. That's typically where you see that misalignment, right? Is like keywords shoved into an existing piece. And then the last thing I think about when I talk about impact is, what do you want them to do next? Do you want this person to say, oh yeah, a blender would help me start drinking smoothies? Or do you want them to feel confident in their decision that they are, that they should be buying the blender that they have in their shopping cart, so that they're going to like purchase the blender that's your brand, just to use that example again. So these are some of the things that I think about when I talk about impact and how that keyword can have an impact on the marketing funnel. So to dive into some examples of ways that we have chosen impactful keywords for customers in the past, the first sort of little case study I have here is from a leading applicant tracking system. So some of the advantages that they had when they started working with Animalz, their ATS had some really, really strong features. They had automations. Some of the features were brand new. Things that saved recruiters a lot of time, in some cases a lot of money, but they had a very, very small market share. And even though they had a very, very strong product, the traffic to their site was low. They were at in this very competitive space, and they didn't have any content marketing that were making people aware of these strong features, the automations, the time and money saving benefits to recruiters. So they had hired Animalz to produce content specifically to drive traffic from their audience of recruiters and HR professionals. Because their biggest need was traffic and visibility, we started by focusing on top of funnel keywords. And we may not do this for, say, if we were working with an ATS that already had significant market share, right? If they already had name brand awareness, something along those lines. But what they needed most was people to become aware of them. So top of funnel keywords were most likely to be researched by a recruiter who's looking for information on something, resources, how to do their job better. How do I find candidates? How do I recruit more candidates? What kind of outreach emails should I be sending? Things along those lines. The recruiters looking for this information might not yet have been looking for a new applicant tracking system, but over the course of reading this really helpful content, they would be introduced to the product, and they would gain that awareness of, oh yeah, this is an ATS, cool, I know what they do, I have one myself, maybe I should switch, maybe my ATS isn't giving me, the experience that I want. So when we look for top of funnel keywords, one way that we use Alexa is to put in a keyword that we think has like a potentially amount of good high relevance, I would say, to our customer, right? So job posting sites was an example. And Alexa was able to give us a lot of suggestions that are similar to job posting sites and tell us not only how relevant they are, but how popular they are and how much competition is around those similar keywords. So job posting sites has a 71 competition score and a 38 popularity score. If you look further down the list, you're able to see some more that have maybe slightly lower competition scores and slightly more popularity. So right below that is free job posting sites, which is actually a variant that we ended up going with. And going with that slightly less competitive variant, but slightly more popular option gave us a lot more traffic and allowed them to start ranking, even though in these early days when we started working with them, their domain authority, their name brand awareness, it wasn't very high yet. But by posting an article targeting this keyword, they struck that right balance of being able to get into the door competition-wise and still get a lot of traffic. Something else that we're looking at when we look at when we research keywords like this, like free job posting sites, is who's already ranking for this keyword and what share of voice do they have. It's really helpful to see who is getting traffic for these keywords already, and we can kind of discern from that maybe why they're getting so much traffic. So you can see for free job posting sites, the Better Team, the Fit Small Business, the Glassdoor sites, they're getting 24, 15, 9% of the share of voice. They have a lot of people flocking to those articles about free job posting sites. And we might look at those and say, all right, it looks like they're just, maybe they have the biggest list possible of free job posting sites, right? Like it's 60 free job posting sites. Okay, so clearly what people are actually wanting is a very big list. Or on the other hand, it might be a list of only 8, but every single one of these sites are reviewed. So by looking at who has the share of voice and how much share of voice that they have, we're able to say, okay, this is what we can learn, and this is what we should maybe consider doing in our attempt to satisfy, what we call search intent at Animalz, right? What is the person searching for this keyword actually expecting, and how can we give them that? So the impact of working with this particular customer, in about a 6-month time period, their ranking keywords went from 300 to nearly 9,000. A lot of those keywords were, like I said, the sort of like top of funnel, job posting sites, recruiting tips, things along those lines. Those keywords, we really, really went up with those. The average monthly sessions for them went to roughly 20,000 a month. Recruiting is a field that has some seasonality spikes. So some months we'd be at like 40,000, some months we'd be a little bit lower than that, but roughly 20,000 per month. And they had more than 10 articles that were ranking on the first page of the SERP for their specific target keywords. And those were the highest value keywords for them as far as like getting traffic, getting people in the door, starting to put them in their marketing funnel. So moving forward, the second case study is with a live chat platform. They've been a customer of ours for about a year. They're a leading live chat and chatbot provider for sales and support. Their team is really, really invested. They already know content marketing. They love content marketing. They see the value of it, and they produce content in-house with several agencies. They have a lot of fantastic partners, and we're really happy to be part of this journey with them. The one disadvantage is they do have a lot of content, and this makes it tricky to work with them sometimes because if we're pitching them a keyword that we think might be relevant for an upcoming product release, a product update, for their blog, for their audience, we have to do a lot of checking to make sure there's not already a piece about that, targeting that keyword, or there's not already a piece about that topic that wasn't targeting that keyword because they haven't always, I would say, approached content with SEO in mind. So there's a lot of content to dig through and a lot of moving parts and pieces involved that we have to take into consideration when working with a specific customer. But they hired us specifically to beef up their SEO performance and avoid that issue they had with their content not being produced for a search audience. Their blog is a very high performer. It's really well liked. But they wanted to find new customers who weren't aware of their most recent features and their most recent product improvements. A lot of people know who they are. A lot of people might already be using their products, but they don't know what this company is doing outside of like live chat, right? And they're doing so much more. So we're happy to help them out with that. The solution for them is middle of funnel keywords. When we say top of funnel at Animalz, we're thinking like the previous customer I talked about, right? It's people who are looking for information, for resources, for ideas. They don't really know that they need a solution yet. They're just looking for help with something. And our customers tend to be a solution, right? In this case, we're targeting keywords that are a little bit less broad and a little bit more okay, I think I might need live chat, but should I have live chat or chatbots? So maybe live chat versus chatbots. Or like I say on the slide here, direct comparisons of two specific solutions, jam versus jelly. In this case, it would be like our company versus another company, right? So they're comparing specific tools or solutions. They're thinking about, do they need it? How do they implement it? What are the challenges they're going to face? And these middle of funnel keywords are what we use in our research for them. So, same as with the previous customer, one thing we found very useful to do with these sort of middle funnel keywords is, again, look at the share of voice. And for this specific keyword, customer service chatbot, we're looking at who is already ranking, talking about customer service chatbot specifically. Who is talking about this topic? What are they saying about it? And how many people are going to these articles? And what we found was the traffic for this specific keyword is mainly concentrated about in, I would say, expert publishers, right? Live Chat Inc. and Chatbots Magazine. These are people that know more about this topic than anyone else. And for us to compete on this keyword, we also have to kind of step back and take a question ourselves, right? Are we as knowledgeable on this topic as these two experts? But what was interesting looking at this was we're already also seeing an individual writer on Medium and some other folks, like someone who made a YouTube video and an individual writer for Forbes, ranking in there as well. So it's not like we don't have any hope. We just have to establish that we know our stuff, right? As well as the people who write about this every single day. And maybe that's a question or a challenge that goes beyond a single piece of content and a single keyword, but it is something definitely to think about. So another thing we've looked at is keyword opportunities, and we're not talking about the keywords that are, you know, they resemble this. So with customer service chatbot, it might be business chatbot, sales chatbot, We're looking at what keywords are these sites also using in maybe the same pieces of content. And we can use Alexa to order these keywords by relevance, by popularity, and by competition to see, again, if there's a piece of content, or a keyword that we have a higher chance of ranking on because the competition is lower, but the popularity is relatively high. So in this specific case, we might look at, say, live chat, 52 competition, 48 popularity. That's a nice kind of middle space that may not necessarily fit to the scope of this article, but there are a couple other keywords in here, if we kept going through, like machine learning, chatbot, Facebook Messenger, that might fit into this article. And we could also optimize a specific article about customer service chatbots for these keywords or one more keyword. So the impact of writing articles mainly targeted for these middle of funnel keywords, the competitive ones, the I need a solution, what kind of solution should I be considering ones. We have nearly 3,000 total ranking keywords in about a year working together. They also have 11 articles as of this month ranking on the first page of the SERP for their specific, again, the highest value to them target keywords. 4 of those articles are in a #1 position, and 3 of those articles have a featured snippet. And the featured snippet is another really fantastic win for them because it's giving people a little bit, it's like a taste of the content, right? It's like, oh, here's what you can read about whether or not to choose live chat or a chatbot. But if you want the whole story, you have to click through to this article. And I personally think their pieces are very, very compelling. They're very well written. I don't write them anymore, so I'm not talking about myself. I'm praising the CM who does this writing. And it's really exciting to see how successful they've been, specifically with this like middle of funnel strategy and how many people they've managed to bring in and educate about the newer features that they've released in the last couple months.
Hey, Nicole, a quick question on that one. You said that that this customer in particular has a lot of existing content. Are you updating a lot of that content? And if so, how are you determining which middle of the funnel keywords would be good and that content would be ripe for updating?
Yeah, so in some cases we have refreshed some of their existing content. It really depends on what so far it's dependent on like what we've identified in the research process. Some of the articles that we've worked on have been naturally related to one another. So we've worked on some about like using a help center, right? Like going to a help center to get information, using a chat bot to direct customers to a help center, things along those lines. And if we find a piece that would be really beneficial to link from, say, between, like, there's a linky piece sometimes, right, between like, how does a help center work, or why should I have a help center and a customer service chatbot? Sometimes there's already that missing piece, like using a chatbot and help center together, but it's not optimized for any keywords. We'll say, hey, we're going to link this in this article, but we noticed it's not optimized for any keywords. Should we do a refresh? Usually our process has been that way. It's almost like we're identifying a keyword that would be beneficial for them to be ranking on, and then realizing, oh, there's already content for this. We should really do a refresh, versus the other way around, right? So like deciding we're going to refresh something and then figuring out which keywords we should use. Which I think I said earlier about like jamming keywords into articles. Like I think there is a case for that, right? I think refreshes are one case where you should be looking for additional optimization opportunities, reaching your audience in new ways, reaching new audiences. But with this particular customer, our refreshes have been more like, we found this thing, it's great, but it's not ranking and we really think it should be. So here's our suggestion for keywords. Does that answer your question?
Cool. Yeah, that does. That's great.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on to our final customer, KaiOS. They started working with us earlier this year. They were one of my first customers for me to be in a strategy role with them versus an individual contributor, CM, as we call it, role. They have the third biggest mobile operating system worldwide. And with that came absolutely very, very fast, rapid growth. They have gone from 0 to over 100 million devices in less than a 3-year period. And it's that kind of growth like outpaces Apple, outpaces Google, outpaces any other mobile operating system provider. They've been growing so fast. The disadvantage that they were faced with when they signed with us was that fast growth was kind of unexpected, right? Like they knew what they were doing was good. They have a very, very strong belief that what they're doing, they call it closing the digital divide with their operating system. They have very strong belief that that's the best thing for them to be doing, but I don't think anyone was prepared for 100 million devices plus in such a short amount of time. So in their minds, they began content marketing kind of late. They'd been doing some PR prior to hiring us, but the result of that was their online presence, like their own website, their own minimal content marketing before hiring us, was not really there. News websites, Medium articles, Forbes articles, individual YouTube videos were outranking KaiOS on almost any given keyword. So here's one example, and this actually happened. I actually ran into this while putting the slides together for this presentation. I was looking to see, hey, how many users do we actually have on KaiOS now? And when I searched for KaiOS number of users, you might think that the KaiOS website would pop up. This is the first page. They're not anywhere on the first page. They're not ranking anywhere for KaiOS number of users. I did find them on the bottom of page 2, but it's not even in the right context. It's users home. This is actually part of their development guide. This is how they work with users, like end users. So this is a very good example of the kind of thing we ran into when we started working with them from a strategic standpoint. So what we wanted to do with KaiOS was focus on branded keywords. You could call this a bottom of funnel solution, and in a lot of cases it is, right? a lot of the developers who are searching for branded keywords, like develop for KaiOS, KaiOS development resources, KaiOS tools, in some cases KaiOS phones, they already know what KaiOS is. They're invested in it. They just need the tools to get started. So they're not comparing and contrasting at this point. They're not, looking for general information. They're looking for action. They're trying to take the next step. In some other cases, branded keywords are more just to own the space. We should be showing up for KaiOS number of users. We should be showing up with KaiOS how many phones are there. We should be showing up for any KaiOS search, right? So to get users, end users, developers, carriers to go right to the source, we were optimizing many of our first few articles for these branded keywords, so the phrases with the KaiOS name in them. And Alexa, again, this gives us a really great way to figure out, first of all, who is already ranking these branded keywords. We can see, first of all, who other than KaiOS is ranking, why are they ranking, how strong are their sites. But then I also put KaiOS Tech, which is the KaiOS domain, KaiOSTech.com into Alexa. Okay, they're ranking well for KaiOS browser, KaiOS app development, download KaiOS, KaiStore. That's great. They're not ranking so well comparatively for What's Up KaiOS, KaiOS Apps List, Kai Operating System, KaiOS Download. So this gives us a pretty good idea of what branded keywords we should be chasing for our first couple articles that they aren't ranking so well on and other people might be, or they're ranking okay on bottom of second page, but they should be on the first page on because they have those resources already, or we're about to give them resources that answer the questions that go along with this. So this is one of the first few articles that we produced. It's called Learn to Develop for KaiOS with these resources. The target keyword here was develop for KaiOS. We were also targeting, I think, 2 or 3 other longer tail keywords like KaiOS development resources, KaiOS operating system. We have a separate article on that keyword now. But learn to develop for KaiOS. We wanted to own this phrase, right? Because the traffic for this was scattered across so many different sites, and there wasn't one big resource for this. And we thought, if someone wants to learn about developing for our customer's operating system, they should go to our customer site. So we made one central page for that. We got a lot of increased rankings for these targeted branding keywords. It's still very early on. Many of the articles we published have only been up for 2 months, 1 month, in some cases 3 days. They just published another one this week. So it's too early to say that they've increased rankings by, 21 places or 18 places or something along those lines. But we are seeing increased rankings for KaiOS operating system, how to develop for KaiOS, KaiOS development, those branded keywords, right? The topics and the phrases that we want to own. So people who are looking specifically for these things go to our customer site and not the news sites and the sources of PR that are already out there. We have also seen sessions up 27% month over month, August to September. We are confident that that's going to continue to rise as we keep owning these branded keywords. So wrapping all this up, a couple tips for impactful keyword research. The first thing is figure out who your target audience is before you're choosing keywords. Again, going back to what I said at the very beginning, what are they looking for? What sort of phase in the decision-making process are they in? Are they thinking that they need to purchase something, or is purchasing something not even in their mind yet, right? Who are they? What do they do for a living? Do a personas exercise if they have to, or if you have to, rather. But figure out who that audience is before you choose keywords, because the stage that they're at in the marketing funnel what they're looking for and what they are doing or about to do really ties into your keyword choice. Second, definitely use Alexa's keyword share of voice to study who is already ranking for something and to understand why. Like I said, with the first example of the applicant tracking system, it's really helpful for us to see, you know, if it's free job posting sites, right? Are people looking for the biggest, most complete list possible of free job posting sites, or do they just want 6 really well vetted, really authoritative, deep reviews of free job posting sites? If we know who's already ranking and why they're ranking, we have a much better chance of producing content that matches the search intent and gives our lead what they want. Use more keywords with a lower volume. So I think we all sort of shy away from lower volume keywords, right? Like, they're not going to get as much views, they're not going to get as much attention, but in many cases, especially the further you get down the funnel, a lower volume signals an audience that's much closer to making a decision, or they know exactly what they want to read about. I'm not saying use like 10 per month searches or use 5 per month searches or use 0 per month searches. I'm saying that if you're looking at a keyword like Vitamix blender versus another brand, right? To talk about my blender example again, that person, even if that's a 20 per month volume search, right? That person is so much closer to making a decision than someone searching for blenders. Why are they searching for blenders? Do they know what a blender is? Do they want recipes to make in a blender? Like, why? You don't really understand the search intent there, right? So the person searching for Vitamix versus another brand, if you're Vitamix, that's a keyword you should be owning because they're probably very close to purchasing a Vitamix. And finally, track and report on your results frequently. This is something we do at Animalz. Reporting for customers is part of a monthly process. For some customers, it's quarterly, depending on how much content we're producing for them. We track keyword results and do a spreadsheet that our customers get, and it says, this is where you're ranking on this keyword. This is how much movement you've seen. This is, do you have a feature snippet? Do you have this? Have you gotten these backlinks? And it goes beyond the keyword ranking, right? It goes into backlinks, it goes into shares, it goes into domains that are linking this particular article with this particular keyword. But tracking and reporting on your results is the only way that you can understand, yes, I picked the right keyword, or maybe this wasn't the best one. I should do a refresh, choose something else, and go at it again. Or, okay, this article is not really performing at all. I need to take a step back completely and understand if there's something in our strategy that needs revisited, or if there's something in the approach of this article that's just wrong. What can I do to improve the performance here?
In terms of tracking and reporting, how long are you generally giving a piece to, be out there in the world before you decide to revisit it and see if it needs a refresh or needs a slight change?
That's a good question. So for KaiOS, the last customer that I talked about, none of their pieces have been up for 3 months yet. And for me, at least in my experience, the 3-month mark is generally where we start to see signs of success or signs of not quite yet so much success. For our second customer that I talked about, it's interesting because consistently for them at like the 9-month mark, that's when the posts that have taken off, the ones that are ranking number 1 in the SERP, number 2, they have a featured snippet. That's when they got the featured snippet. That's when they hit number 1. It kind of depends for each customer, right? I think that generally you should wait at least 3 months, but I wouldn't make a call about, personally, I wouldn't make a call about doing a refresh unless you saw completely flat traffic, no visitors, no results, right, after 3 months. After maybe the 6 to 9 month mark, that is when I'd feel more comfortable acting on, established keyword rankings and established positions in SERPs and things along those lines. So I guess to kind of sum up my wibbly wobbliness around this topic, I would in most cases say 6 to 9 months, unless within the first 3 months you're seeing really terrible results.
That makes sense.
So I have a quick question for you. I love how you talk about choosing keywords that are aligned to your target audience. And I run into a little hiccup in this process occasionally, so I'm curious to hear how you handle it or what you do. But occasionally I'll see a keyword and I think, oh, that looks great. That looks like that would be relevant to my audience. And one recent example is the keyword writing tips. Our content is geared towards content marketers, so I thought, oh yeah, that looks super relevant. And then I go to Google and I see that the writing tips seem to be based around novels or books or writing something that doesn't seem to be content marketing related. And so occasionally you what you think logically is your audience isn't. So do you have tips for sort of validating that the keyword truly is the intended audience or is searched mostly by the intended audience?
Yeah, I think kind of what you're seeing there and what you're talking about is something that Ryan, another one of our strategists, has talked a great length about. I think there's even a post on the Animalz blog about it, what we call search intent, right? So you're seeing that Google is giving heavy weight to more generalized, like novel writing tips or tips that aren't specific to people who might be in the marketing industry or in content marketing. And in that case, my first piece of advice is almost always go more specific with your keyword, right? If someone who is a content marketer or a marketer or is doing copywriting or something searches for writing tips and they see the current results, the first thing that they're going to do is get more specific. They're going to say, oh, actually, this isn't relevant to me. I should look for copywriting tips instead, or I should look for content marketing tips instead, or I should look for tips on writing a blog instead, right? So with you going more specific to your keyword, you're matching pretty much exactly what their next step is as well. And that's what we think about when we're thinking about search intent. Like, because the searcher is not seeing that, they're not going to wade through like 18 pages of results, right? Like, even if you are on page 18, you just have to go more specific to match them. I mean, the other thing is you can, if you're not certain about a keyword, right? Like, we have seen a couple occasions, actually with the first customer I was talking about, where the search intent is a little muddled. So you might see that like half of the first page of the SERP is writing tips for novelists and half of the first page of the SERP is writing tips for marketers, right? So there's like a 50-50 chance that this post will be successful or not very successful, or it'll just end up on page 2 and, nobody really wants to aim for page 2. So what we typically do in that case is look at, first of all, what's the split? Is it 50-50? Is it 40-60? Is it 70-30? Is there an audience that's dominating the first page or the second page of the SERP? And then, what is it worth to take that gamble? So what are the potential rewards of ranking in a mixed result SERP? So in some cases, if we're looking at, I'm trying to remember what the specific keywords were, but we were looking at a lot of like recruiting topics, right? So job sites, job posting sites, getting like tips for hiring, interviewing, that's what it is. So interviewing was one of the sort of like hubs where all of our results on all of our blog posts when we were doing the keyword research had that like muddled search intent, right? So like 30% of the first page would be applicants talking about doing their interviews better, and then 70% would be people hiring doing their interviews better. And for some of those keywords, the value of ranking on that first page, because the monthly traffic was like 18,000 visits a month, we could do the math on that, right? 18,000 visits a month. If we know we have a 5% conversion rate, all things considered, it's worth the gamble, right? For us to try to get on the first page. But if you're looking at like a 300 per month volume keyword or a 200 or less than that, something, it's probably not, unless you have a very, very high conversion rate, which you might, it's maybe not necessarily worth the gamble to try to match that mixed search intent and end up on that kind of muddled first page. Does that help at all?
It does. Yeah, that was a great response. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, I have another question actually about your second case study. You mentioned that the site had a lot of content already, and one of the challenges was that, making sure you weren't choosing keywords that they already ranked for. What did you do to confirm that the keywords you're thinking about are untapped opportunities?
That's a really good question. We would, first and foremost, I would do a Google search. So if they wanted to write, or if we wanted to write an article about, let's go back to chatbots, because that is something we write about pretty frequently for them. I would actually search for chatbots plus customer name, or chatbots customer service plus customer name, and see if I could get them to come up in a search. And if they were coming up, where were they? Were they on the first page, top of the first page, bottom of the first page, second page, third page, fourth page? If I couldn't confirm it, just the quick search, which most cases I actually could, I would put their site into just various keyword tools and look to see what keywords they were already ranking for. I do have somewhere like a really big, it's outdated at this point, but I have somewhere a very, very big export of all the keywords that this customer site was ranking for, with a filter on it, so I could actually filter out like, here's what we've used, here's what we haven't used, here's what they're ranking for this. Obviously, it's outdated at this point, but it was a lot of like fact checking on my part, right? Like first with manual, then with tools to see, have they used this? Where is it used? In some cases, it was, they've used this, but this article is 6 years old and it's only ranking for this keyword because there's no competition. I think we could do a better job with this. Let's see if they want to redirect it. And in some cases they did.
Cool. Well, this has been really, really helpful, Nicole. Thank you for sharing all your great insights. I've definitely written some stuff down that I'm going to take to our keyword strategy.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for having me. Just as a quick plug, obviously, if you want to learn any more about Animalz, visit us at animalz.co. You can also follow us on Twitter. We have a relatively brand new Twitter at AnimalzCo. And I also have a Twitter. I didn't put it on my slide, but it's at Nicole C. Kohler. And you're more than welcome to follow me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Nicole.
you.